Next article I wanted to look at is titled E.W. Jackson, The Democrats Running in Georgia Are Demonically Possessed. This isn't the only article about this guy that I wanted to look at, but I've never really talked about him, or haven't talked about him extensively, so I wanted to introduce you to who this guy is and one of the crazier things he said before introducing you to the really scummy things that he said recently. This article is a little bit older. It's about a month old at this point, because this was happening during the runoff elections in Georgia during the 2020 election. So let's read the article and see what it says. It's by Hemant Mehta on the Friendly Atheist website. Weeks after claiming Christian voters in Georgia may as well spit in Jesus' face if they support the two Democrats in the Senate runoff election, which of course ended in early January. Right-wing radio host and former candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, E.W. Jackson, now says John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock are demonically possessed. Before we actually get into this clip, let me just give you a little bit of lead up in case you're coming into this clip cold, in case you're coming into the election cold and you're unaware of what happened. In the 2020 election in Georgia, there were two Senate races because there are two senators in each state. Normally, they stagger the races. Senators run every 6 years. So typically, Georgia wouldn't have two Senate elections in the same year. They would stagger them. But Kelly, the last guy resigned or died or something. So the governor, Brian Kemp of Georgia, put Kelly Loeffler, a Republican, in as senator for the moment until the next election. Well, the next election was in 2020, right? So Kelly Loeffler was up for election for the first time since she was installed to replace somebody who had left the post. And she was running against Raphael Warnock, who is the pastor who led Martin Luther King Jr.'s church in Georgia. Like, he's the pastor of MLK Jr.'s church now. The other senator was running against a guy named Perdue, Republican. And his name is Ossoff. So it was Ossoff versus Perdue, and it was Loeffler versus Warnock. Warnock and Ossoff were the two Democrats. That's the context. Now, when the 2020 election happened, nobody got above 50%. So if no one gets above 50%, they have what's called a runoff election, where it's the two top people compete against each other. And in this case, in the 2020 runoff election in early January, Warnock and Ossoff, both Democrats, won their elections. They won their Senate seats. So now Georgia has two Democrat senators. But this is right before the runoff elections took place. This guy is trying to convince people to vote Republican rather than Democrat. Let's listen.
If we send those two demonically possessed people, Warnock and Ossoff, if we send them to the United States Senate, we will be cursing our nation. Georgians who are listening to me and watching me right now, we will be cursing our nation.
They get desperate, dude. Seriously. This guy is claiming that a couple of senators are demonically possessed. This is something I find Jehovah's Witnesses doing a lot, for example. Somebody that they don't like, their opponent in some way, shape, or form, for example, apostates like me, they're mentally diseased. They're literally being possessed by Satan, possessed and controlled by Satan. This is something that Trump used to do too. This is called dehumanization. If somebody is trying to claim that there's something evil about you, that you're mentally diseased, that you're possessed by Satan or something like that, this should throw up red flags. This is what Jehovah's Witnesses do to their enemies.
If we send those two demonically possessed people to the United States Senate, and they are demonically possessed, as far as I'm concerned, I agree with Tony Dungy. Raphael Warnock may be a pastor, but he's no Christian.
The fuck is he talking about? How could he possibly be more Christian? Christian is a self-assigned label, first of all. Anybody who claims to be a Christian is a Christian. That's just what it is. It's a category, not a group. If there's some Jehovah's Witness out there who says, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, but I don't believe in but I believe in blood transfusions, they're not a Jehovah's Witness, because that's a group, and the rules of being in that group, the rules of using that label are dictated by the people who basically own and control the group. Like, the governing body members decide who's a Jehovah's Witness and who isn't, and they can kick people out of that religion if they want. How do you kick somebody out of Christianity? You can't do that. It does not work that way. He's a Christian if he says he's a Christian. It's the same reason why Christianity can't be considered a cult, because it's not a distinct group with strong mind control tactics being imposed on people. Christianity isn't imposing behavior, information, thought, and emotional control on a structural level uniformly across an entire group of people. Christianity is a category, not a group. Now, if this guy wants to say he's not a member of my church, he can say that all he fucking wants. His church is a group. It's not a category, it's a group. Warnock is a Christian, whether this guy likes that or not.
I mean, you're promoting the babies, and you are promoting homosexuality and all of this gender bending.
What is that? Gender bending? Isn't that like isn't gender bending like where you change somebody's photo to be the opposite gender? I thought that was just a fun thing. Maybe I'm wrong on this. If I'm wrong, someone correct me. I thought that was just like somebody did a gender bent picture of me once where they put my picture through like a filter and it made me look like a woman. It was just a fun thing in that case. This guy is entirely too uptight about the LGBT community and about all of the shit that he seems to despise. Why is he even opposed to this shit?
Sexual perversion and all that it entails, and you support the Equality Act, which we know will enshrine things like drag queen story hour and all.
The fuck is he even talking about right now? What is he talking about? This dude is bizarre.
These other abominations that the left has come up with, it'll enshrine those things in our culture and in our law, and make it even more difficult for churches to protect our people from that evil.
I'm so fucking confused right now. Like, I'm having trouble following what this dude is saying. Seriously, what is he talking about? It'll enshrine what in our culture? What is he trying to protect his church from? And why is that more difficult if, Raphael Warnock wins an election? This is fucking weird.
And yes, it is evil. All this stuff is evil. Now look.
What is evil? I'm still at a loss here. I mean, I know he mentioned homosexuality a minute ago. Is that what he's saying is evil?
I love those people and they need salvation. But what they are doing is evil, and what they are perpetrating on our culture is evil. And if we allow those folks to enter in the United States Senate and give the likes of Chuck Schumer control over the U.S. Senate.
No, I just want to say, if you think he's a scumbag now, wait 5 more minutes. Wait 5 more minutes, and you will see him for what he really is. For the record, as far as I know, Raphael Warnock isn't gay. And if he was, it wouldn't matter anyways. But he seems to be conflating, being gay with Raphael Warnock. He's saying that Warnock is evil because homosexuals. That's basically what I'm picking up here, right? It's almost like there's no logical, thread to follow with this guy. He's just, blanket saying, these things are evil. And because these things are evil, Raphael Warnock can't win the Senate. It's like no logical train of thought to follow here.
We will be bringing a curse on the United States of America. And I don't know of any more honest and stark way to put it.
That's E.W. Jackson. I haven't talked about him on my channel much before, but I wanted to introduce you to him, like I said, before actually playing the next clip for you. There's another article about this guy by Hemant Mehta on the Friendly Atheist website. Title is E.W. Jackson, Gay and Transgender People Will Never Get into Heaven. So let's give this article a read and see what it says. Right-wing radio host and former candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, E.W. Jackson, who recently said John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock were demonically possessed, spent part of his live-streamed Bible study yesterday trashing the LGBTQ community. Besides claiming gay and trans people couldn't go to heaven, a belief that even many conservative evangelicals and Catholics oppose, Jackson also condemned Dr. Rachel Levine, I think that's how you say it, a trans woman and a pediatrician selected by President Joe Biden to be the Assistant Health Secretary. Now, I don't know if you guys were aware of Dr. Rachel Levine. I know very little of the situation, except for the fact that Dr. Rachel Levine is trans. That's my understanding of it. And honestly, I couldn't possibly be happier about the situation, knowing that we have trans representation in high government. I could not be happier about it. I'm glad to know that the LGBT community, and more specifically the trans community, is getting representation. That's good news in my mind. So let's watch this video by this guy who's talking about it and see how he feels.
No transgenders in heaven. No homosexuals in heaven. Nobody in heaven is going to be confused about what God made them to be. Nobody in heaven is going to be talking about, I'm a man, but I've got a woman on the inside. Please. See, that's how you know that stuff is of the devil.
Wait, how do you know? How do you know? Is he going to tell us how we know? You can't just fucking say, that's how you know. How do you fucking know? Give us information.
That's how you know. Because that stuff is not going into heaven. So...
Wait, is he saying you know it's of the devil because it's not going into heaven? Is that what he's saying? You know it's of the devil because it's not going into heaven. How do you know it's not going into heaven? Because it's of the devil. That's circular reasoning if I've ever heard it.
What people need to do is get saved now, get delivered now. You see this guy, this Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services, I think it is.
Remember when I said you were going to find out just how much of a scumbag this guy is? This is the part. Trigger warning.
What's he call himself? Rachel something or other.
What's he call himself? Rachel something or other. What a fucking scumbag, dude. Seriously.
I mean, it's sad. It's pathetic. It really is. You look at this guy, and he's a freak.
Does it get any lower than this? Honestly, does it get any lower than this? Like, I've covered some real scumbags on this channel before. I have covered some real fucking scumbags on here. But that is pretty fucking bad. Let's read what Hemant Mehta had to say. That must be the Christian love we hear so much about. Nothing but insult, comic humor, and cruelty. There's no substance to it. It's just Jackson ripping on people he deems less worthy. Keep in mind that Jackson assumes he'd be going to heaven, never acknowledging how that would be hell for anyone else. And yet his beliefs are perfectly in line with the kind of anti-LGBTQ rhetoric that's commonplace in conservative churches. They demonize people they don't understand because their entire worldview is etched in stone. They would rather insist their archaic views are perfect than educate themselves and change their thinking. I'm not even asking them to educate themselves. If that's too difficult for them, I get it. Shut your fucking mouth. That's all I'm asking. Stay out of other people's business. That is it. That's all I have ever asked on this channel. Stay out of my business. Stay out of the business of LGBTQ people. Live your life and let us live ours. We don't need scumbags like this forcing their way in, misgendering people, dead-naming people. We don't need that shit. It's fucking disgusting. You know, I've been doing this for 5 years. This is probably one of the most disgusting things that I've covered on my channel.